European investor, European client comes to you, asks, should I stay wedded to the UK, to London? What do you tell them?
Listen, I mean, where are we today? You know, it's been 3 years and a half. It's another Friday night of another week with no Brexit resolution, right? There were high hopes, over the past 10 days, and just reacting on what President Macron, said today. I think he's effectively taking the stance of what you hear on the London Tube. Mind the gap between the train and the platform. And I think the train is leaving now, and I think it's about the British Parliament effectively to get there, right?
So we know that Brexit headlines move the pound, and they move the FTSE, et cetera, and every once in a while they move other markets, but mostly it's just domestic. What about from the European perspective? Does the relative softness or hardness of the eventual Brexit factor into how you feel about the attractiveness of European assets?
I mean, the situation of the Brexit has been a huge distraction across the European markets now for some years. London is and will remain the financial center, of Europe. But
what makes you so sure of that?
Well, it was the financial center 200 years ago. There was not even any European Union or anything like that. For many reasons that comes down to the language, the culture. All this scene, will certainly remain. Now, when it comes to Europe, let's go back, to basics, right? I mean, they were not part of the euro. The Europe has always been on the continent, where the markets and the global investors are trying to invest now. Is in Germany, it's in Italy, it's in Spain, it's hopefully in France. And what we are seeing, and again coming back to President Macron's statement, is we have to move on. So the very specifics, linked to the uncertainty around Brexit, is something that has to be dealt with, obviously, but that should not impact, longer, the European situation.
But it has impacted business investment, it has impacted sentiment, it's impacted the real estate market. I mean, I'm still a homeowner over there, largely because I couldn't sell my house. So where are the opportunities, and at what point can you start to enter if nothing's really being sold?
Well, it's actually happening now, because we're seeing more and more contrarian investors, and we're trying to be one of those, because effectively there was an overweight of global capital invested, in London or in the wider UK for the very reason you mentioned. That's where it was happening. We have been seeing. Remember what has happened, the week of the Brexit with the real estate outflow. When we had those funds, had to gate because there was some redemption. So that has stabilized. But what we are seeing that more and more global investors are rebalancing their European portfolio into other European countries.
And so what does London, what does the UK have to do to sort of keep those people sort of engaged? I mean, what type of concessions are they going to give to make sure that they're still competitive with some of those EU countries?
I think the first thing is to remove any kind of uncertainty. Financial markets, they hate uncertainty. Remember, I'm sure that on this show last week, you were talking about the forthcoming week, i.e. this week, and we're hoping some kind of resolution.
Right.
And here we go again. So as soon as we can remove some part of this uncertainty, and to the comment that your colleagues were making, in London about, actually Macron is maybe an ally to Johnson in this situation. Remove the uncertainty.
On Europe specifically, of course, we just had Mario Draghi's final press conference or final meeting period, handing off the reins to Christine Lagarde. Is there a framework in place to revive European growth in a meaningful degree, or are we still just going to have this grind of modest, effective monetary policy and political stalemate as a reluctance to do anything structural, and the fundamental European story stays the same?
Mario Draghi has done a terrific job in the context of the situation. I think that Christine Lagarde, who's been a very good, IMF president and a great finance minister, in France, has everything it takes to effectively take this situation to the next phase. The global leadership, the European leadership that is now required, will be at the core of that. And, with position like the one we heard today, with Christine Lagarde taking over, this overall negative interest rate environment, is a big situation. It has helped a lot, but hopefully we're not just building, the next crisis to come.